Sainam, everyone. Last week, we were looking at some of the pearls of wisdom from Swami. In this chapter, which we are reading in Sandeha Nivarini, Swami gives step-by-step things that we could practice through which we can realize the Atman. So Swami has so far been talking about love and truth. Swami starts with love as the most important thing, which is life itself. And that's the first one Swami says, and that's how we have to treat love. Then Swami goes on to talk about, among all the types of love, the love for God is called bhakti, and that's the most important thing which we should practice. Then Swami goes on to talk about truth, and says truth is also something which is the most precious. And those were the things which we're discussing, the importance of truth and love in our lives, and what it can do in our lives in terms of improving ourselves. So that's what we were discussing. So I will ask Sister Kalyani to read on. Sairam, Sister Kalyani.
Uncle, are we going to do this section again or go to the next one?
You can just read this. I think we discussed this, isn't it? Anyway, but we can just read it for the sake of revision, I guess, and then we can proceed. We don't need to discuss much, but okay.
7. Satya, truth, must be treated as life-giving as breathing itself. Just as a body that has no breath is useless and begins to rot and stink within a few minutes, similarly, life without truth is useless and becomes the stinking abode of strife and grief. Believe that there is nothing greater than truth, nothing more precious, nothing sweeter, and nothing more lasting. Truth is the all-protecting God. There is no mightier guardian than truth. The Lord, who is Satya Swarupa, expression of truth, grants his darshan, vision, to those of truthful speech and loving heart. Have undiminished kindness toward all beings and also the spirit of self-sacrifice.
Thank you very much, Sister. So I think we discussed quite a bit at least, but I will just maybe highlight a couple of points, and then maybe if there's anyone who would like to discuss, if they have been thinking and something has been weighing on their mind, or some insight which they may have derived during the week, they could share. Swami is telling that he gives darshan because the Lord himself, Satya Swarupa, the form of truth, embodiment of truth. The form itself is truth. And he gives darshan to those of truthful speech and loving heart. So I think we should understand what exactly is darshan. Is he going to physically manifest in front of us? Or are we able to see the divinity in everything that we see? That's something which we can think. Both of them are, I think, valid. But we should also be able to recognize the divinity in everything. And so that we will be granted the blessing of being able to see the Lord in everything and everyone who we come across, if we are truthful in speech and loving heart, Swami says. And then Swami, I guess, in point number 12, goes on to explain what it means in terms of our life. We should be having kindness towards every being in this world, And he also says that we should have a spirit of sacrifice, self-sacrifice. These two are being highlighted by Swami as something which will be the things which we have to practice in our lives. So I will just pause, and if there's anything anyone would like to say, you can share now, please. I guess, sister, you can continue, Sister Kalyani.
Just maybe a question about number 12, have undiminished kindness toward all beings and also the spirit of self-sacrifice. I just wonder, you know, when we're trying to do this in our daily life, like I can sometimes feel like, oh, sometimes I feel that way, like, oh, like I feel like being kind towards everyone and, you know, sacrificing time and things like that for others. And whether it be at the workplace or at the home environment. But at a certain point, you know, especially at places like at work or something like that, you may feel that other people maybe take advantage of that or those kind of things. So I don't know if that's, I guess if it's really true kindness, it's not, I shouldn't feel that way or I shouldn't feel burnt out or tired if it's coming from like the Atma. But I wanted to ask what other people's thoughts are about that.
Okay, thank you very much, sister. Would anyone like to share your thoughts, please, about what Sister Kalyani asked?
Just signed on. This is Shivani.
Yes.
I was actually in a similar situation last week where we have to, you know, we were in our science center, we have to deal with a very tough decision, and it might have seemed to a person that we are not kind and all of that. It was hard. I couldn't sleep the whole night. I was asking Bhagawan, we are going to talk to the person, but my voice should not be rude or disrespectful. Believe me, it's very rare that I don't able to sleep. The whole night, basically, I was praying that we have to make this decision. It's a tough thing we have to tell, but it's the truth. And the voice it should not come out disrespectful. Sister Kalyani, you won't believe. I mean, I'm not going to go in detail. The way the words were coming out, we dealt with the truth because we are not hurting. The intention, okay, cutting the story short, the thing is the intention was not wrong, saying something. So the words were coming out very softly, loving, but it was a tough decision and tough, I would say very, how should I say, it was hard to deliver that, but we were able to deliver very amicably and the results were really very nice.
Okay, thank you very much, sister. Anyone else would like to say anything, please? I guess in that sense of...
Sorry, just to say that sometimes I believe as a Sai devotee, and I'm talking about myself, we think humbleness is not telling or loving is not telling the person the right thing. I believe that if we are respectful to the person and if it is the right thing, we should deliver that message. But it's the intention behind how we deliver is more important. And that's how we can see divinity in everybody. That's my interpretation.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else would like to say anything, please?
Sairam. There's a story from that put up by the Swami was telling with that students. One time that students were in the center duty, guard duty there. That one minister was, the prime minister was inside the ashram and he was sitting in that, those days in Hulunthal, there was a room for a guest. So at that time, one minister was coming inside to see the prime minister. He was coming with the chappals. So at that time, the two boys were guarding, and one was that the Sainath, that he was telling that minister that please don't come with the circle inside, leave it inside, outside. He was very humbly and lovingly told that words, but he's not listening to that word, and he pushed him out aside and walking straight to that Prime Minister's room. No? The other boy was noticed that, and he right away ran there and told that minister, sir, if you don't listen to us, please give your chapels. I can leave it outside. Otherwise, I am going to report about you to the Prime Minister. Then he was alert. No? Then he went back and put the chapel and come back nicely. Sometimes we have to be a bit strong about our voice, because we are doing the right things. You don't want to hesitate to do the right things, please. Then at the time we are loving and patient, we are do that. So I'm also accept that deal. This is the word. Thank you, sir.
Sai Ram, thank you very much. Anyone else would like to say something, please? I guess in the absence of anyone, maybe I will just comment on a couple of things and then we will proceed. Sister Kalyan, actually 2-3 concepts have sort of surfaced. I think the first question of Sister Kalyani was, if we are self-sacrificing, what happens when others take advantage of us? I think that's the first question. What do we do in such situations? I think, this is similar to the topic which we were discussing in the Sunday study circle last week, I guess. Where Swami is talking about surrender. He says, sometimes we surrender to the Lord and we think that we have surrendered. But then we say, Swami, we have surrendered, why all these problems are not going away? And Swami says, if you have not, if you feel that way, then that means you have not surrendered. So the same thing with the self-sacrifice, I guess. Because many times we all sacrifice. I think all of us practice sacrifice. We will give up something which we like for somebody else's sake. But the problem is whether it is sacrifice or whether it's self-sacrifice is the question we have to ask. Because sometimes when we sacrifice, we hope that we don't have to indefinitely keep on sacrificing, because some days others will start paying back, or the world will start paying back. So what happens is, because we are holding on to some aspect of self, because we want something out of it. So what happens is that kind of sacrifice, Swami says, is it's a transaction based, because we have done something and we are hoping for some return. Whereas the real sacrifice is just sacrificing everything. That's why Swami has used the word self-sacrifice. In the case of self-sacrifice, then the question will be asked, if you have given up something, you're expecting something. Okay, that's the ultimate thing, because even sacrifice we do because there's some merit, some punya which accrues because of that. Swami says that's also looking for results. But in the case of self-sacrifice, so are we not gaining anything is something which we can ask. Because Swami says the fruit of self-sacrifice, it's itself the joy that we derive from it. The joy is nothing but God. Because we have, whatever we sacrifice for the sake of the Lord, because we will have the Lord with us. So the thing is, all our dissatisfaction about sacrifice shows up only because we are looking at it from a worldly perspective, because we are losing out from a worldly sense. And it seems to be continuing and on and on and on, because even when we sacrifice, we are looking for a worldly benefit. Even some other people's recognition that we have done something, let other people recognize it. If they don't recognize, then we will say, there is no recognition or not even acknowledgement. These are some of the problems which we all suffer from, because we look for something for our small self. So that does not merit to be called self-sacrifice. Because in the case of self-sacrifice, we have gained the Lord. So once we know we have gained the Lord, we don't need anything else in this world. But it is a very supreme or very high truth for us to practice. But I think we need to strive towards that, is what I think Swami is telling, because only then the Lord will give us darshan. That means the previous paragraph says, previous number 11 says that Swami will give darshan. So once you have the darshan and when you have the Lord, you don't need anything in this world. People can take advantage of this body, whatever we do, because we have gained the Lord. I think that's what I think we have to cultivate that. It's very difficult as long as we have a worldly view in our practice. Then Sister Shivani spoke about how we have to lovingly tell the truth. And then Brother Rajagopal told the story, one of the anecdote, I think, which was narrated by brothers. I don't know whether everyone has heard. I will just narrate it again. With a few details. Swami at that point in time, in the 90s, Swami was staying in Swami's residence was in the Purnachandra Auditorium. At one point, some Chief Minister had come, or Prime Minister had come. So what had happened was an MLA, a member of the Legislative Assembly, which is of the state, who was politically affiliated with the Prime Minister, wanted to have his audience. So he had come to Prashant Nilayam, and he found that the minister was in an interview with Swami in the Purnachandra Auditorium. So this person who didn't really have any regard for Swami came to auditorium, because he was a VIP, the Sevadal didn't stop him, no one stopped, so he came. He was allowed to come near the auditorium and Swami's quarters, and the interview room was there. It was called the green room in the auditorium. He was trying to enter with his chapels, and he was not even removing the chapels. And at that point in time, there were two students who were doing what they call door duty. One of them was Mr. Sainath. So he pleaded with him, "Sir, please remove," and that he wouldn't listen, and he pushed him aside and walked inside. Then the other person, who was a little more better built, bigger body, he basically stood at the entrance and he told, if you're going to behave like this, I'm going to tell your behavior, I'm going to complain about your behavior to the Prime Minister inside. Do you want me to do that? He sort of threatened. This person right away went back and removed his chapels outside the door and then came in. So this was the incident which took place. So the next day, in the Mandir Darshan time, Sainath was sitting outside, and the other student, who was also a singer, was sitting inside the bhajan hall. So apparently Swami came outside and told him, tell what happened, and some guests were there. Swami told him to explain. And then he explained. And then that this is what he tried, but he was not very successful. Then Swami turned to the VIPs and said, "See how humble my student is. He doesn't speak harshly to anyone." And he praised him. Then Swami came to him and told him, apparently, look here, if you are like this in this world, everyone will treat you like a doormat. Okay, you need to know to stand up at times and speak properly. So this is what he told him. And then he went inside the bhajan hall, and there also he asked the other boy, what happened to him? So he basically narrated the whole thing. Then apparently Swami told him, see, he stood up for even, he was not afraid of an MLA, sort of a government official. He had that courage, which is very good, Swami told apparently. Then, of course, everyone laughed and was happy. Then Swami went to this fellow and told him, look here, you should not talk like this all the time, because that's a bad courage, because no one will like you. You will become the most disliked person. And this is not a quality which you should cultivate. You need to learn to be humble also and tell properly. So you can see Swami is always trying to improve us, because the perfect balance we have to arrive at, and these are different ways Swami teaches. Sai Ram, everyone. I thought I have taken some time because this topic was introduced. I thought I would spend some time. Sai Ram.
Thank you for that explanation. Thank you.
So we will go on, Sister Kalyani. I hope it's okay.
Number 13. You must also possess control of the senses, an unruffled character, and non-attachment. 14. Be always on the alert against the 4 sins which the tongue is prone to commit. 1. Speaking falsehood. 2. Speaking ill of others. 3. Backbiting. 4. Talking too much. It is best to attempt to control these tendencies. 15. Try to prevent the 5 sins that the body commits: killing, adultery, theft, drinking intoxicants, and eating of the flesh. It is a great help for the highest life if these also are kept as far away as possible. 16. One must always be vigilant, without a moment's carelessness, against the 8 sins that the mind perpetrates: kamam or craving, krodham or anger, lobham or greed, moham attachment, impatience, hatred, egoism, pride. Man's primary duty is to keep all these things at a safe distance from himself.
Okay, Sai Ram, sister. So now, once we have Swami has told us what we should cultivate, now Swami is talking about things which we should avoid. Swami is talking about the things which we should avoid in terms of speech, things which we should avoid in terms of our body, and things we should be avoiding in terms of our mind. Mind, body, and speech. There are things which we do, which wrong things, which are not very positive or constructive. Swami wants us to avoid them. And very clearly, Swami has stated this. I will deal with, I think first Swami starts with senses. First we should have sense control. Indriya Nigraha is what Swami would say. And it will give us the Shanti, a state of peace, is what Swami says. Shanta Bhavam is what it says, and Vairagyam. Those are 2 things which will come as a result of being able to control the senses. So Swami starts with senses. Then he talks about speech. He says speaking untruth, falsehood. Then speaking ill of others, that is you abusing them in front of them, shouting at them or putting them down. All that is speaking ill. Then last one, the third one is backbiting. That is telling about them to others. And then Swami says talking too much. So those are 4 things which we should avoid in terms of speech. Then the 15th point talks about things which are committed by the body. Killing, that is killing anything. Then the word which uses adultery, but Swami uses the word vyabhichara. Vyabhichara is traditionally translated as adultery, but it is anything which others possess, and if someone forcibly takes on, that's considered vyabhichara. Because in Gita also Krishna uses the avyabhichara bhakti. That means we not possessing what belongs to others forcibly. Then theft, that is stealing. So then one is forcibly taking over, the other one is stealing it. Theft. Then Swami talks about drinking intoxicant, which is basically any form of intoxication, which affects our ability to think clearly. Then Swami talks about eating flesh, mamsam, eating meat or eating any things which are not vegetarian. Swami says these have to be avoid it. We have to prevent, try to prevent. And also we should keep them as far away as possible. So Swami wants us to be distant also. To the extent possible, I think that's what Swami says. Then the last one is the 6 enemies of the mind, which grows up in the mind: kamam, krodham, lobham, modham, and so on. Kamam is craving for something that we do not have. Krodham is to get angry because of the disappointment that we didn't obtain what we wanted. Then lobham is greed, or not sharing with anyone, wanting it for ourselves, not being able to give it or share with others. Then moham, and then some sort of an attachment. It's actually delusion, I would say, is better. Then madham is translated as impatience here. It's pride is a better way of saying, or pride, I don't know, however you all want to it. Pride, impatience, being showing a certain level of violence at others also, I would say. Then matsarya, which is jealousy. It's treated as hatred or jealous. So these are things which we should keep away from our mind, is what Swami says. So I will stop here. Anyone who would like to share, please go ahead.
Brother, a question. It can happen that you, in order to tell the truth, you won't get something which you strive towards, but you have to tell the truth, and you're hoping that the consequences might not go against me. So the thinking is, if it's not for you, whether you tell truth or not, it's not for you. That's how the thinking should be. Or the person is too attached, lobha, attached to the results. So, okay, what I'm trying to say is that you might tell the truth, but the result might not be in your favor. And you're thinking, if you would have not twisted, like how Krishna is the way you say things, it depends. You are anticipating the result could have been in your favor. So my mind is saying, you know what, the truth could have been said in a different way because the result could have been in your favor. I don't know. Did I confuse? Because I'm good in confusing people.
I think you were clear, sister. I will ask others also to chime.
Sai Ram, I will think like this. I will say the truth and face the consequences. I don't mind to face the consequences, but I will say it in a nice way. But sometimes it will. Usually, people say truth hurts. Then that gives you some kind of problem. But I will take it as that is for a short term. But in a bigger picture, it always going to be good for yourself, and you will have a peace of mind. That's the way I will think on the truth basis. Thanks, sister.
Thank you, sister. Sairam, anyone else would like to share your thoughts, please?
Oh, Sairam, brother. So we go to any spiritual places, we have to think the reason to uplift ourselves, not looking at others. So you have to follow whatever the Baba's teaching. Here is a Baba's, you have to talk, speaking falsehood, not good. Talking too much is not good. You should not have ego. If you have love, you are not going to hate anybody, any spiritual places. Even if the person is talking too much, it's not supposed to affect nobody. That is a person he talks. If in a spiritual places, if the person is character is not good, if you involving with the money dealing, those kind of is the one we have to pay attention. The trustees will take care of those funds. We are going to uplift our all kind of spiritual activities. We should not affect at anything. We have to be always follow the truth. Then you have to bring your peace. If what is the purpose? You are going to the spiritual places and you don't have peace because you are affected all other environment. So it should not affect you at all. This is my points, brother.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else would like to say something, please? No one is saying anything. So the thing is, the speech, the Swami is addressing speech. All these things happen only when we see something wrong, in this world. If we see something wrong or something not right, only then all these things come up. We will try to cover something up by saying untruth, or we will say something harshly to the person that is speaking ill, or we will tell about that to somebody else, which is backbiting, or we will talk a lot. It means that will keep us thinking too much and talking. Otherwise, our mouth will be all silent and we will be all great spiritual aspirants. So always in life, only when we see something not so right, all these things can crop up. So then that is the best way, I guess, we should practice. As I think already everyone has touched upon, which is the intention. If we have the right intention, it is good. Then we should think, what is the right intention? Are we trying to help that person, one person, or are we trying to help others? I think that we should be clear. So when that is so, as Sister Adna said, we will tell as politely as possible. Then we will not be able to put that person down in public, or we will not talk about that person in private with others. Because intention is right means we don't have to discuss with others, because we have to correct that person. So the thing is, it is a balance, I would say. There's no hard and fast rule one can think, but as long as the intentions are pure and we go about it in the most loving manner, and I think we can sort of cover all of them, is what I think. So I will leave it at that. And if nothing else, as another point which Dasan nicely brought about was because in this today and age, everyone thinks it is their job to correct everyone else around. And I think there we have to understand, I think that job is Swami's ultimately. If we are given a position or a role or a responsibility, at that time, there are things which we have to say or do to discharge the duty of that role. If you're a policeman, you have to apprehend a criminal. If you're a lawyer and a judge, you all have to argue the case. And sometimes it can become very almost hurting to the person who is at the receiving end. But they are all performing their duties. But if everyone thinks that they are a police and starts going about it, then it becomes a problem, I think. And so, as Brother Dasan said, I think in the spiritual path, if we all focus on our own growth, then these problems will not affect us and we can be silent. And through that silence, everything is avoided, I guess. Silent. Okay, I guess there are other points I think no one has discussed. Maybe it's clear and nothing much needs to be discussed. I guess that's why there's no discussion. So we can move on, Sister Kalyani.
"17. Man's mind speeds fast, pursuing wrong actions, Without letting it hurry like that, remember the name of the Lord at that time, or attempt to do some good deed or other. Those who do thus will certainly become fit for the Lord's grace. 18. First, give up the evil tendency to feel impatient at the prosperity of others and desire to harm them. Be happy that others are happy. Sympathize with those who are in adversity and wish for their prosperity. That is the means of cultivating the love for God. 19. Patience is all the strength that man needs. 20. Those anxious to live in joy must always be doing good.
Thank you, sister. As we can see, Swami is giving very practical instructions of how we can practice sadhana, spiritual practices, I guess. Swami is talking about we should not be in a hurry. Let the mind not rush. And when the mind is rushing and to get something, think of God. And I think that Swami says. It means we should not be craving and clamoring for something in this world. The next one is when others are doing well, always it's a problem to one who feels that one does not have what others have. And all of us, to some degree or other, are affected by it. So Swami is saying that we should be happy that others are happy, even if we do not have. Once we think we are part of ourselves or our family, then we will be happy. A mother may not compete with a daughter or a son. Father may not compete with the son. We'll be happy that the son has it, or the brother has it, or the father has it. So I think if we feel that way, we will always share in others' happiness, even when we do not have something. And then people who are not doing well, we should help them in the ways possible by sympathizing with them, is what Swami says. Then 19, Swami uses the word sahanam, to be able to bear anything in this world, be patient, is the biggest strength in this world. Nothing is more equivalent to that in terms of strength to withstand any adversity in this world, which is sahanam, or forbearance or patience. Then Swami says, if we want happiness, we should always be doing good, because that's what will bring us happiness. And those are the points which Swami has said. So I will open it up for discussion by everyone, please. Silence. I guess there's complete silence. I think if it's all clear, I think we can continue.
Sarah, brother.
Yes, brother.
Yeah. We can see sometimes bad things happening. We try to help them, and according to our capacity, if we can try to help them, it's okay. Otherwise, we pray to Swami to help. That's what I can say. Thank you. Sorry.
I think if it's clear and we can practice them, there's no further discussion needed, I guess. We can continue on.
"21. It is easy to conquer anger through love, attachment through reasoning, falsehood through truth, bad through good, and greed through charity. 22. No reply should be given to the words of the wicked. Be at a great distance from them. That is for your good. Break off all relations with such people. 23. Seek the company of good men, even at the sacrifice of your honor and life. But be praying to God to bless you with the discrimination needed to distinguish between good men and the bad. You must also endeavor, with the intellect given to you. 24. Those who conquer states and earn fame in the world are hailed as heroes, no doubt. But those who have conquered the senses are heroes who must be acclaimed as the conquerors of the universal.
Thank you very much, sister. So I think we are getting into some instructions of Swami, which I guess could generate some discussion. Swami is giving us the solution how we can overcome anger with love. Anger, that is with love. Attachment to everything with reasoning. Using Vivekam, I would say, Swami would say. Falsehood, truth. So if there is untruth in the world, you have to win it over with truth. And if anything bad, through good, and greed through charity. I guess it is all about winning, as someone, Brother Dasan has already said, it's, I think, our own victory over ourselves. If we have anger, we should cultivate love. If we have attachment, we should win it over with reason. If we are telling untruth, then we should overcome our problem with truth. So bad with good. So it is for us to do on ourselves, I think. It's not about winning over others. The conquer victory. Then Swami is in the 22nd point, he's saying we should not even engage in a discussion with the wicked. And he wants us to be at a great distance from such people. Swami uses often Tyaja Durjana Samsargam. With bad people, do not keep company. Move away, run away from there, is what Swami says. Then Swami goes on to say Satsana, Satsangam, or good company. He says, even at the sacrifice of your honor and life, you should be willing to give up even your life and your honor to seek the company of the good. And he says you have to pray to God to help you give you that discrimination to find who is good in this world. Then he goes on to say, winning over countries or earning a lot of money or fame, you don't become a hero. If you win over your senses, you become a hero. That's what Swami says. So those are 4 points which Swami has talked in terms of different challenges which we face in our life, in our own lives, in ourselves, and how we can overcome that, I guess. Is there anyone who would like to share something?
Sairam, brother. Point number 22. No reply should be given to the words of the wicked people. That's itself something to think like that. Don't you think in Swami's vision or Swami's teaching is incorrect? Why we have to think like that? When you are saying before we have to be loving and all the people, right? Then isn't it sometimes it's your own fault to think like that also? I'm just thinking to myself, could be it's your fault. You're pointing to the other person. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam, sister. Anyone else would like to share something, please?
Sairam, it looks like for me that the wicked here means the people, not our ordinary people with whom we talk to or we converse with. This is people like maybe drunkard or killer, tagari, those people. So if we have to answer anything, then they might kill us and run away. So those are the people Baba saying that wicked. In ordinary life, we don't come across wicked. No? That's what I am thinking. If it is a drunkard, if it's a murderer, a robber, then in that case, if we just give an answer to their question, then we will be in trouble. Our life may be taken away or something like that. So that's what it looks like for me. Saira.
Sairam, anyone else would like? Thank you, brother. Sairam, anyone else would like to share something? I guess it's very important to discuss this, because I think you all have this tendency to think, oh, we should not judge people. We should be loving them. So how can we keep away from anyone? If all of us tend to think, and then the Swami being contradictory here. He says love should everywhere, divine is love. But then now he says keep away from bad people. So then you would say, what is that? What is that bad, and how can we be loving? I think this is the question which Sister is asking. I think it's a valid. Okay, and there are a few comments. Okay, on the chat box also. I will read it out. I think I missed. But Sitaram had earlier on said that how kindness is different from compassion. Daya is kindness, a result of compassion. Daya. I think Swami has used the word daya, so your compassion is daya. In English, there are many words used, I guess. And I think once we cultivate daya, real daya, Swami says, a certain love for everyone, compassion, well, sir. Then Brother Suri Kumar has said, always be cheerful. Anyway, now Brother Sitaram has brought up a point. He says, the bad thoughts, wicked mean thoughts in our head itself is also bad company. And we should keep away from it, is what he says. That is also one way of looking at bad company. I think that's the ultimate, I would say. So I think the question of Sister Aruna is, if everyone is divine, the Lord is in everyone, and we should be loving, why should we keep away? The reality is we associate with everyone in this world for the sake of worldly activities. Otherwise, we really don't need anyone's company in this world, including our family. No one's company is needed, which is what sannyasis do. They embrace the entire world as their family, but they are not attached to anyone. One is to consider everyone as yours and be loving. But then the question comes, why then loving means we should go and talk to anyone? Loving does not mean talking to anyone. Loving does not mean spending time with anyone. It's a state of mind where we see that divinity is everywhere. But in this world, related to the world, so how do we practice in this world is the second question. If a bad person is, as Brother Sivada said, drunkard, person who kills and this and that, there are different degrees of, I think, those problems also in this world. Even someone who is telling lies, someone who is talking bad about other people. If someone is indulging in something like that, it is better we keep away. When we know that somebody is talking ill of others all the time, it is better to avoid that company, how much ever we love that person. Because when we know that we can't fix that person, it is better if we do not associate. Not because we hate them, because that may not help us. Because if you stand with somebody who is doing something wrong, we also may be giving credence to that, support that. This is what happened to Bhishma, Drona, and all of them. They were great people, but they stood by Duryodhana. Even though it is not out of hatred that should run away, they should dislike the adharma which is being done or asatyam which is being spoken. So even if somebody tends to tell lies, it is better to cut off from them. Not because you don't love them, because you don't want to be part of that act of theirs, which is what they are completely, always, constantly indulging in. So that is discrimination. We can still keep away from somebody without hating them. In total love, and we can just pray to the Lord, please help them. I am unable to help, but please help. But it is not helping me, my mental peace, and me standing there may be not good for others, because others may get a wrong impression of that person and ourselves. So sometimes avoid bad company, Swami always says. If somebody is acting in manners in which Swami has already described, the speech is bad, the actions are bad, or the mind is bad, which reflects in other ways. When we realize that, we should keep away, not out of hatred for them, out of love for them, we should keep away. Out of love for yourself also, you should keep away, is what I understand. So one is discrimination, one is judgment. You can always judge the actions in which a person is indulging, and then keep away when you know that act, if you do, is bad. So all companies are bad only because that company, if they make us indulge in the same thing, that company is bad. It's the reality is when we know that someone is speaking something not which is right, which is simplest. So not so controversial. So I thought that would be a better example. We should keep away. It is better we don't even have any conversation with them, because if all conversation is bad, that's what I understand. Sorry, I maybe spent a lot of time talking.
Okay, thank you very much, brother.
So Sairam, brother. So whatever, there's a good explanation. Whatever the person is intoxicated, so we supposed to not to talk too much, and we know how to avoid those kind of people. And even the Vyasa, the mind supposed to be always supposed to be clear. Even the Vyasa wrote the Mahabharatam. After wrote the Mahabharatam, he is not happy in his life. His mind is upset and everything. Then he went and talked to Narada Rishi. Then he told, because you were writing the Mahabharatam, and you were, when you were writing about Duryodhana and other bad characters, and you are in that particular situation, so your mind is corrupt at that time. Now, in order to avoid all those kind of things, think about God's glory and started to think about, write something about God, then you will be okay. Then we also started to do that kind of things. Eventually, he was okay. Thank you, Brother Saira.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
Saira, actually, Dasan's things were very good. Dasan's explanation and the story. What happened is, when we talk, as Brother Bruno explained, if we are sticking to the person who is telling lies every time, then what happens is we are get spoiled. Our mind is get polluted. So that is the only reason Bhagawan is trying to say that, to avoid that one, because our spiritual demeanor will diminish. So that is one thing. And also I would like to draw here the Brother Arno's Ananya Bhakti explanation regarding Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, mind, aspects of the mind, the three aspects of the mind. It could be Rajas or Tamas and Sattvic. So the Atma is good. pure 100%. But when it come out through these three windows, especially the Rajasic window, then it is something it could be dangerous. So that that Atma is pure and no doubt on that, but only that is the window that comes through which it is coming out. No? So that's the reason that we have to avoid this bad company, and always we have to resort to the good company. Why we are saying the resort to the good company? Because good thoughts emanate from them, good words emanate from them. That is conducive to our spiritual progress. So rather than staying at home, if we could find a good person through our discrimination, if we find, oh, he's very good to associate with, then let us associate with those men so that we can improve. So it is the way it looks like. Thank you, Saira.
Thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
Sairam, I would, Sairam, in this context, I thought it's worth pointing out this. I listened at Radio Sai as students were talking, study circle sort of thing. Now, at one of the drama rehearsal, Swami was there watching, and a student was acting for some bad character, say Duryodhana, whatever, some bad character. He was doing it so well. He's so involved, and he was doing it so sort of deeply involved in that. And Swami said not to go to that extent. And the other students were saying, Swami, it's only acting. Swami said, no, even then, don't go to that extent. That will have some impact on him and even maybe others. So that shows that how much we have to be careful in this area. So even in acting, Swami didn't want a student to go to that extent to express the bad in a person. Sairam.
Sairam.
Saram, we flee from the bad companies. These are right things because we try to correct that person. We try to advise them and try to correct them. Otherwise, we go away from that. Because it may affect us too. After that, it's an example that Bhisma was in the courts of Duryodhana at the time of Vastarabharanam, and he was sitting in that courts. That reason he was lying in the arrow bed for 56 days. For that reason only. Otherwise, he didn't do any bad things, because sitting at the courts only, he got the punishment from the God. That's the way that we also can affect it from that. We try to correct the person's friends. Otherwise, we can go away from them. That's nice. I think that's Sairam.
Thank you.
Sairam, brother. Just my thought with the brother Rajagopal thing. See, when you don't talk, when you don't stand for the right thing also, there is a problem. There is a punishment there. So where you're going to draw the line, that's the part is the hardest part, I think. Oh, so where we have to run away without saying anything also, it's going to be a problem. That's the way I'm thinking. For that, it's really hard to make the judgment. So sometimes you have to say things. I'm just thinking about that. Where you are going to draw the line is the hardest part, I think. Thank you, Saira.
So just to clarify, I thought I heard Brother Rajagopal say, you have to say, and when you say the person is not changing the ways, at that point in time, there's no point in sticking on and moving away. I think that's what he said. So I think each person has to judge for themselves. Ultimately, it's all about ourselves. So I will go back to what's in the chat box. Brother Sitaram already said, wicked thoughts basically means what happens in our mind. Good thoughts is also happening in our own mind. Ultimately, that is the decision maker. Then Sister Kalyani also pointed out, she is narrating something which she heard in the radio Sai answering both we had. I'll just read it out. They said, when we avoid bad company, we are not judging the actions, character of the person. We are judging who we are in when we are in those people's company. When we are in that person's company and are having good thoughts and actions, then that is good company. When we are in another person's company, are we having bad thoughts and actions? That is bad company. Is what Sister Kalyani said. Basically, we should analyze and see in ourselves, is it bringing up good company or bad, good thoughts or bad thoughts, and that's what determines. But I will just add to that, because if we look at the Bhishma story, which Brother Rajagopal said, even though in that case Bhishma did not even speak up. He didn't say anything, and he just stood by. So those two were problems, because unfortunately at that point in time when Draupadi asks him, Bhishma appeals to him and says, is this dharma? It's a question apparently Draupadi asked Bhishma in the court, and he basically said, dharma is a very tricky subject, so I cannot comment, or something of that sort. So the thing is, sometimes before we realize, our thoughts have become like the thoughts of people with whom we are. That's what happened to Bhishma. Even though he was a great person, his thinking itself had changed by then. That is why he didn't even speak up. So the thing is, Swami always says, for example, Swami tells this nicely, how we should avoid bad company. He says, if there's a drum full of milk, if you pour a little bit of water, that water becomes milk and people will drink it. Because the water is, if you say that is bad company, bad person, when there's a drum, there's a lot of good people doing good things. When that person joins that company, that person can change. But he says, if there's a drum of water, and if you pour a cup of milk into that, will you call that milk? No, you will just say it's water with a little bit of flavor of milk, but it's only water. So Swami says, all sadhakas should seek good company. Means you should be always in a place where good actions are, because don't think that you can change a drum of milk with 1 cup of water. This is the classic examples of this is like Vibhishana. He told his brother, Ravana was surrounded by people who thought like him. But he advised. Then he ran away from there, because he realized that is where discrimination comes. Vibhishana realized, as a single individual, he cannot bring about change. In the court of Ravana, where Ravana and all the people around were thinking alike, if Vibhishana had remained for a while, he would have also fought along with Ravana, and he ran away. He ran away to Rama. So I think we should understand where we can fix a problem, where we cannot fix a problem. And we should not overestimate our own abilities to fix the world. Those are some thoughts which came to my mind, so I thought I will share.
So, brother, the lesson, the last discussion, what you said. Sorry. So we should not be a bystander in terms of if seeing something wrong, even though my position might not be such that I can change. But what the Vishnu did, bring to the person's knowledge who is doing a wrong act and forget about the result of it. Because keeping quiet is that another sin is when if we don't do it, but participating in the wrong act in front of you, isn't it? It's a sin by itself. That's what I'm learning from the discussion.
Yes. Silent sister. I think there were a couple of others.
Sairam.
Yes.
Sairam, yeah. Last week, I am going through the same problem, whatever we discussed today. Even yesterday, I called Aruna and asked her, how can I get rid of this kind of problem? And today, I couldn't join the study circle, but I am outside and joining it. I think I got the answer today. I tried to help her. The lady come to my house, housekeeping and everything. Last week I had very bad feeling about that. Even I help her and advise her, but she has some bad companies and bad habits. When I talking to her, I couldn't sleep peacefully, and the problem I couldn't solve her, I couldn't advise her. Sometimes she doesn't even understand what I am saying. Then I try to help her, but she's in trouble, but I don't know how to help her. Then I pray Swami, and still I had to talk to her and help her, but I couldn't talk even one or 2 days because I am not in peace of mind to do this kind of thing. What can I do? Things like that, because it's disturbing my mind and also disturbing my thinking and thoughts and everything. I couldn't do it. Sairam, I don't know what we can do for this kind of situation, because they are corrupted, but even though they're asking help, and she's kind of good-hearted person, he's helpless, but the company she was is like a bad. Sairam.
Sairam sister. I think Auntie Sakku also wanted to say something, I guess.
Sairam and Varuno and all the Sai brothers and Sai sisters. This is my understanding. Mind is deathless. You have to live with it. So the word, thought, and action, to control that, you have to give your mind some action. That is only through your namasmarana, listening to kirtan, holy stories, experience of other devotees, seva, and constant meditation. When you do all these things, these mental agitation won't be there. You said about Vibhishan, he's the sole prayas for Rama. That's why he didn't fall into the pit. But Bhishma, he thought, word and thought and action, he thought, if I leave Duryodhana, I will be questioned. So I better stay with Duryodhana's side, Gaurava's side. And he didn't do his Atmik Dharma. This is my understanding. Am I right or wrong?
You're right, Auntie. I think all of us. Sairam. Anyone else would like to share anything, please?
Yes, Sairam, brother. Because Sister Aruna's question, I would like to say something. That is my understanding only. Now, if we hold a responsible position in an organization, and according to Baba, in a center, you would have known, in a center, the president is the ultimate authority. Likewise, if we are holding a responsible position, and if we see that one person's actions are contradicting with accepted norms of the organization, and in that capacity, we have to tell the truth. Tell the truth pleasingly, or pleasingly actually, tell the truth. And we cannot just keep silent when in a position. That's the thing, that many people run away from position because they are unable to tolerate these things. No, so the yeah, so we to execute, once we took up the responsibility, we have to carry out what is good and what is right, and what we have to say that. Basically, we have to say that. Thank you, sir.
Sai brother, Sai.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to share anything, please?
Saira, the sister was telling about Bhishma, that Bhishma cannot go away from his three other side, because he already promised to that father or someone else that he never go away from that kingdom, because he always had to look after the kingdom and watch the kingdom as a leader, there. But he's not the ruler, but he's going to give the support. That's why he can go away from that. He already gave that promise, that he can break the promise. That's why he was always taking with that three other side. That's Sairam.
This is what Brother Aruna explained the other day, that when the Bhishma promised two things to his father. One is that he will not claim rulership. And the second one is, at any time, at all time, I will safeguard the children of the stepmother. So the brother explained it. But still, Bhagawan is saying that his 52 days suffering at the end of his last death time on bed of arrows was due to this inordinate silence he kept. So we have to look at what Bhagavan says and take the things that Bhagavan says in different angles. One time I remember Bhagavan said that Bhishma was waiting 52 days on the bed of arrows in order to Uttarayana period to begin. So there's so many angles are there, and so many subtle things are here, and we have to get it what is good, and we know now, we are the intellect. We have to understand that ourselves. Okay, thank you, Sairam. This is what I understood. Thank you, Sairam.
Thank you very much, brother.
Sairam, I have a question. The people we are saying about Ramayana, Mahabharata and everything, this Kali Yuga world, people are coming to the Sai Center and taking a position to do corruption. That kind of people, with the innocent people are coming to see, listen to Baba and know about Baba and bring the children to Balavikas and coming satsang. That kind of innocent people, the people are holding position. They think they know more about Sai Baba and telling the right thing, but in the other way, they are cheating people and taking money from them. And that kind of people still around us. How can we handle those people, Sairam?
Sairam, anyone would like to share any thoughts, please?
So whatever I mentioned before, in any spiritual organization, any satsang, if we find a person with a corruption mind or character is not good, or that is borrowing money from other people and trying to spoil the other's mind and peace, so one bad apple is not good. So it's like a poison for the team. So they have to bring that to the president, and he will take legally or whatever the action. He can bring it to the meeting, or he can do what, that is up to the president. He remove that person or whatever the solution he can make. But others not supposed to be affected with this one, the mind or anything. Just leave it to the president and he will handle those kind of things. Thank you, Saira.
Saira. Anyone would like to share anything, please? So we are coming to our 10:15. So I will just say a few words. Yeah, it's not to say and the last word. I think we'll just highlight some of the points. I thought clarify them, because I think we should not go with questions, too many questions, I would say. I think the Bhishma, let's take the story of Bhishma. Bhishma gave a word that he will support whoever is on the throne. That was his word to his mother, stepmother. The thing is, because he stuck to it. But the problem is, because sometimes we stick to things in word, not in the spirit. Because the challenge Bhishma realized later on was both Duryodhana, the Kauravas and the Pandavas are from the same lineage. So both need support. But when both of these are fighting, he didn't know which side to be. Even when he was not very clear, as Swami said in point number 23, when we don't have, we should pray to God to grant us the discrimination. So the challenge which Bhishma faced was, though he was a great devotee of Krishna, he was not willing to go to the side of Krishna, where Krishna was. Because he should have the understanding that when his buddhi or vivekam is confused, the best solution is to go where the Lord is. So for all of us, we should run to where the Lord is physically and in spirit, where he is present. So by taking to the name of God, as Auntie Sakku said, by thinking of God, by indulging ourselves in Sai activities, so with the name of Sai or the Lord, whichever we have chosen, that is the best way. We should also not be surprised that even organizations suddenly turn to a negative state. Just like a country can become a negative thing. That's what happened to Bhishma and Drona. That's what happened to Lanka with Ravana. So these are situations, even though when they started out, they may have started out as good people, but then things went wrong. At that point in time, we have to say we cannot hold the organization, but at that point in time, we have to submit to the Lord to take care, because we don't have any solution in our own hands, because we are not as powerful as the Lord. So we should not take on something. So the reality, we should never be surprised, but ultimately we should always think, what is happening to us? Are we in peace? Are we able to think of God? Wherever we are, we should be able to think of the Lord and be with the Lord. If that is possible, that is the best company. If any other situation, even if the others think that they are doing right, if that is not helping us, it's better to remove ourselves to a place or a situation where we are in the thought of God and no negative thing is coming up. So we should hold on to the Lord and sometimes not to the organization. We should know which takes priority. Because even though the Lord has created this world, in this world, we are living only to think of the Lord. If we cannot think of the Lord in this world, then we should be away from the world until we reach a point where we can think of the Lord, whatever the circumstances is. So I think those are just some parting thoughts from my side. Everyone contributed very well for a wonderful, vigorous discussion. And I'm sure in our own way, we will derive the guidance from Swami to practice in various challenging situations in our lives and able to practice them, because ultimately the clarity has to come from the Lord for each of us individually and separately. And I'm sure Swami will guide us by us praying to him incessantly to guide us. And with those thoughts,
I cleaned it 2 days back. Yesterday I cooked for the little guys.
Sai-Ram.
Sai-Ram.
So we will now close with Samasta Loka and Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you. Sai. Om Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.